Hey everyone, I am back with another strategic analysis video on a tabletop game. The game today is Munchkin. It's by Steve Jackson and published by Steve Jackson Games. And I am guessing that if you have played a lot of tabletop games in your day, you have run into Munchkin. You have played Munchkin, and you've probably also written Munchkin off as all about luck. And I admit there is a lot of luck involved, but after playing it for pretty much 4 days straight, playing in a Munchkin tournament and watching a lot of really good Munchkin players play, I have found that there is actually a lot of strategy involved too. There's a lot of tips that I can give you that I think will help you out in your game, so that's what this video is going to do. Just like all my videos, I am assuming that you know the rules to Munchkin, you know how to play, at least the basics, and I'm not going to do much of a review or anything. I'm just going to focus on strategy and tips. So that's what you have in store for you. This should be actually a fairly quick video. I'm going to go over overall strategies and then dig into some specific tactics that you can use and tips that you should keep in mind. So that's about it. And also, as always, check out my blog, theforbiddenlimb.com. There's a text and image version of this analysis, and it goes into a lot more detail, way more in depth. I've got like an Excel workbook too with every single card in the game, in the base game. And then I did a whole bunch of probability analysis on it, and did a bunch of formulas you can check out. You can also do your own. I've got all the data there, so play around with it if you want. But otherwise, yeah, I'm going to jump right into the strategies. There are a few general strategies that you should be using in Munchkin, and I've divided these into early game, mid game, and end game. Early game, you're really just trying to build up items. You're trying to build up your combat strength. You're trying to be big enough that you can beat some of those early monsters. So if you have like an item that you can't use, maybe it's only for warriors or it's only for clerics and you're not either of them, you can trade that to someone else who is and get something, probably with one less bonus or so, but something that you can use that will help you. So try to do that. You're really trying to do anything you can to just build up that combat strength early on. You don't necessarily want to build up levels because you don't want to be a target. But as long as you're level 3 and under, you're pretty safe. Maybe you can go up to 4. So if you get to go up a level card in your starting hand, you could use it so you don't have to hang on to it until the end of the game. Normally you want to save that until you think you have a chance at winning, and you throw it down when you're level 7 or 8 and fighting your final monster to try to get up to that level 10 on a single fight. But if you get it really early, it's okay to use it. In the middle game, you're crafting your hand for that final round. So you are looking for things that will get you from level like 7, 8 to 9 or 10, and then you're also looking for cards that will prevent your opponent from doing the same thing, or really prevent your opponent from winning. So you're looking for things like low-level monsters, like level 1 to 4. You're looking for go-up-a-level cards, looking for monster enhancers, things that will help you just escape a battle. That's the kind of thing that you're looking for. So again, things that will put you over the top and things that will prevent your opponent from winning, but really just crafting that final hand. You're also trying to not be a target. So it's great if you can find someone that's just a little ahead of you. So if you can just not be that front runner, that will really help you because people will be looking for opportunities to use cards that will hurt someone. So you want it to be that guy, not you. The end game. This is what you've been waiting for. You've been building up your hand the entire game for this moment, and this is your time to shine, this round. So this is when someone is level 7 or so is when I consider the end game to begin. Because once you're at level 7, it actually becomes quite possible for you to sell items or use go up a level cards to put yourself up to level 9 when you're fighting that final monster. So if you find yourself in that position, of course, you want to know how many cards have been used that will be really critical in these battles. Things that will end the battle right away, things that will drop you down a level or 2, curses, and monster enhancers that are just going to be really tough for you to overcome. So you should try to be keeping in mind which ones have been used and how many are left. So if you're the first person to go for the win, you're not going to win. People are going to do stuff to stop you. So you can still go for the win, but just don't use all your good cards on it. Just save them up, because you want to wait for everybody else for it to go around another round, and hopefully other people will try to win. It's usually on the third or fourth time that someone tries to win that they actually get the win. But it really depends on what cards you have. You might have some really good stuff to stop your opponents from cursing you and that kind of thing. So just know what you have, and then try to make an educated guess as to what your opponents have before you throw all your chips in on one battle. Now we're going to go into specific tactics that you should be using in Munchkin. The first one being to negotiate all treasure deals. Try to get a little more out of whatever you're trying to do, whether you're helping, asking someone else for help, trading items. Just try to get a little more. It usually doesn't hurt to ask. So, you know, if someone says, will anyone help me for a treasure, say, I'll do it for 2. You know, if you're asking someone else for help, and they say they'll do it for a treasure, their pick, you know, and try to do it, well, you know, I'll do it for one treasure, my pick. You know, or say, will anyone else do it for 1 treasure? Just to try to get them to think, okay, you know, I'll do it for 1 treasure, your pick. So just try to always get a little more out of every deal. Selling items. For one thing, don't forget that you can sell items because it's very important. Then secondly, do it only at really the last round or when you think you're going to win, because otherwise you'd probably rather use those items or at least have those items available to you. So don't do it until you know you can get up to level 9 and either, you know, be looking for trouble or kicking down the door to fight that final monster. So wait until then. Definitely don't sell early. Don't sell early in the game. It's just not worth it because it'll just increase your level, make you more of a target. You'd rather wait until wait as long as you possibly can just before you're about to win the game before you sell those items. Also, don't forget that you can trade items. This is also very important. It's usually used earlier on in the game. If you have an item that requires a specific race or a specific class, you can't use it and somebody else can. Then you might as well trade it to them and ask for something in return. Usually, if you're initiating this trade, you're getting something that maybe has 1 less bonus than this will give them. Or maybe it's something that it's foot gear. They already are wearing foot gear, so you need foot gear. Ask them for the foot gear that they're not using and trade them the item that you can't use and they can. So very important. Doesn't sound that important, but it will give you an increase in bonus. Give you possibly, you know, things that are maybe worth more gold, maybe less, but that doesn't really matter. It's more about the bonus. It'll give you more bonus. It'll get them more bonus. But especially in a larger player game, if you're helping yourself and helping a single other opponent, then you're coming out ahead. As with all card drawing games, where you get to see a card for a very short period of time before it's hidden away into somebody's hand, it is very beneficial to you to remember who has which cards. Especially, of course, when it's something that could possibly really hurt you, like a wandering monster, you know, +10 to monster, something that's going to be pretty critical. Or I mean, even items that are possibly like class-specific items or things that you might want that you know people have. It's a pretty significant advantage to just remember who has what. When it's early in the game and someone is struggling to defeat a monster and they ask for help, don't be afraid to do it. Somebody is probably going to help them to get a treasure or 2, get something out of it, so it might as well be you. So definitely put your hand up and say, yes, I will help you. And then obviously, like I mentioned before, negotiate the treasure, try to get as much as you possibly can, but you might as well get a treasure out of this instead of letting somebody else get it. I mean, it will really pay off in the end if you can do this a few times, get a few extra treasure. Those might add up to winning a battle with a monster that you would have otherwise lost, or being able to sell stuff for a level that you wouldn't have had the opportunity to do if you didn't get that extra couple treasures throughout the game. So very good to help your opponents. Plus, it makes you look better in their eyes. Maybe they won't curse you when they otherwise would have. A little kind of subtle, small things that will help throughout the game. Definitely help people out early in the game. Once it gets to be later in the game, probably don't want to do that. Getting them a level is probably not worth, you know, just getting 1 treasure or 2 because later levels are so important. But if someone is not really competing in this game, they're at level 4 when most of the other people are at like 7 or 8, help them out. Get an extra treasure. That might be enough to put you over the top and help you to win the game. I already talked about go up a level cards a little bit, but I think it's worth spending a little more time on it just because they are the most important card in the game by far. They give you levels. Levels help you beat monsters. Levels are what you need to win the game. You need only 10 levels. Each one of these cards is 1, so every level counts. It's very important. Also, the most important part is that you can use them at any time. So they are an instant, like in Magic the Gathering. Anytime you can use them. So save them, hoard them, keep them in your hand. If the only exception to that is possibly if you get it in your initial hand and you really need to get rid of it so that you can keep some other really good cards, then it's okay to use it, but that's a little debatable because whenever you use that card, yes, you get a level, great, but early on, that makes you a target. You don't want to be a target. Another thing, it goes into the treasure discard. It's very, very likely that you're going to have to shuffle that treasure deck at some point during the game, especially late in the game, very important part of the game. So that go up a level card may come up again. Chances are, especially in a larger player game, it's not going to come to you. It's going to be drawn by an opponent, and that could help an opponent win the game. So keep it in your hand, hoard it, use it just before killing that final monster to get you to level 10. I know this sounds pretty obvious, but before you use a monster enhancer type of card to prevent somebody from winning a battle, first just ask if anybody else wants to do it. You know, just say, you could even say you don't have one, and say, I can't do anything about this, guys, can anybody else do it? And sometimes that's enough for somebody to just be like, okay, yeah, I can do this, you know, like, okay, waste your cards, or use your cards, and, you know, I'll save mine to possibly use against you. So you go ahead and bluff. It's a little risky to, if somebody calls your bluff and you actually do, you know, use a card that you said you didn't have, you really look like an ass and you become a target. So it's a little risky in that respect. But another thing to do too, Steve Jackson did clarify or confirm or change the rules so that if an undead monster is being fought by someone, you can just throw down another undead monster from your hand and force an opponent to fight both of them. Like I mentioned, even early in the game, don't be afraid to use a monster enhancer or make somebody lose an early battle. If they're only at level 3, a lot of times some of the small monsters, low-level monsters, have some really killer bad stuff that can happen to you, like you just die or you lose 2 levels. So I mean, it's tempting to just say like, oh, it's early, it doesn't really matter. But if you can make someone go from level 3 down to level 1, that really hurts them in the game. So it's an opportunity you should definitely consider if you have maybe a +10 to a monster. That's really hard to overcome if somebody is level 3. One really unique thing about Munchkin is that Steve Jackson Games put out a whole bunch of promo items that you can get in different ways. And they got bookmarks and shirts and pins and iPhone apps, and there's a bunch of promo items that will give you a little bit of an edge, maybe let you start out at level 2, or they will give you a sweet item that you can use. Just be aware that that stuff is out there and it's completely legal to use in any game of Munchkin, even in a tournament. One thing that's easy to forget is to keep a low-level monster in your hand for that final round. So low level being maybe level 1 through 4 or so. The average monster level is 8. And so you want to keep a low one in there so that when you are going for that 10th level, you have one that you can throw down if you kick down the door and don't find a monster. You can look for trouble and fight something fairly easy. So I'm sure if you played a lot of Munchkin, you found yourself in a position where you're just praying for a monster to be drawn from that door deck that will allow you to fight them. Hopefully it's not too powerful. You have a 39% chance of drawing a monster from a full door deck, so that doesn't take into account the ones that have been drawn and that kind of thing. But you can figure you have about a 40% chance. But then again, too, some of these monsters might be really big. You might be fighting a level 20. It might be a really tough one, especially when your opponents are going to be enhancing that monster to try to make you lose. So yeah, definitely keep one in your hand. 2 would be great. This is really important right around level 4 or 5 or so. When you kick down a door, you don't find a monster, and you look for trouble, you could throw down a low-level monster from your hand to get a level and get up to like level 5 or 6. But at that point, you don't want to be at a very high level. You don't want to be a target, and so just hold back, just loot the room, let somebody else go, and you'll save that monster for when it really matters later in the game. Now I'm going to talk about classes, which you don't have much choice in. It's pretty much whichever class you draw, you're going to be. Sometimes you do if you draw 2. So they're all pretty good. I mean, they all have some decent benefits, and the benefits of each class is much better than the anti-class modifiers of each monster too. So if you're a class, yeah, you should be a class if you have a choice. Plus it will allow you to use some items that are class specific, and those items are often very, very good. So the first one is the Cleric, and the Cleric is sweet. You can draw from the discard pile. You gotta have something in your hand that you can discard in its place, but still, it's super good. Sometimes you can get some really, really good stuff that people have used. Oftentimes people do save that until the end, so it's a really good end game class, especially with that Divine Intervention, which whoever draws it has to play. So if that has not been played yet and it's getting near the end of the game, really good to be a Cleric, because you can just hope for that to bring you up to level 10. Thieves are really good early in the game. When you're like level 1 and 2, you should just be stealing every item you possibly can. People will be a little annoyed by you, but you'll probably get whacked. You'll probably fail a few times and you'll go down a level, so that's fine. That's fine. Early in the game, you would much rather have a really nice item collection that will help you for the rest of the game and be the lowest level person out there, so that you're not a threat. So yes, people will be annoyed by you, but they will also look at you as like the level 1 guy or level 2 guy that they're not worried about at all. But you'll come back, especially with all these items. You'll be able to come back pretty quickly. But once you get to about level 3 or so, stop stealing. You know, once you get a good collection, just stop stealing, and the thief probably won't help you out too much. You can use the backstabbing, but it's really not that good, so you probably won't use it too much. I'm not going to spend much time on the warrior because honestly he sucks. I mean, it's kind of nice to be able to win on ties, and you know, discarding cards to give combat strength can help, but discarding those cards, it's gonna hurt too much in the long run. He's just not very good. Wizards are pretty good. In particular, the charm spell is great. You'll want to keep cards in your hand if you can. I know that's kind of hard to do, and it's hard to discard those cards to run away, but if you really need to, that charm will give you a pretty big advantage in getting away from a monster that you can't beat. So wizards shouldn't die. I mean, unless you completely get rid of all the cards in your hand, but that's kind of tough to do. So as long as you save a few, they'll be able to run away from most monsters, and they're overall pretty good. They have the Staff of Napalm that they can use that nobody else can, and that's the +5 bonus. It's the biggest bonus item in the game that they're the only ones who can use it. For races, you can be a dwarf or an elf or a halfling, and they're all good. If you could choose, you know, which you can't. There's only 3 of each race in the deck, so you'll pretty much be whatever race you get, but. Overall, dwarves are just, in general, pretty good. Their abilities are passive, and they're just pretty decent. Elves will give you a level if you help. Really depends on who you're playing with. If anyone's really going to ask you for help, if you're an elf, you'll be the last person that anybody does ask for help. So you're actually going to lose out on some treasures along the way, where other people will say, you know, like, I'll help you for a treasure, and if an elf says that, they won't. Nobody will probably accept their help unless you're like the biggest, baddest Munchkin in the game. Then they might need your help to beat someone, but normally you just won't get asked to help, and you won't get treasures. I mean, in the off chance that you do get asked for help, I mean, obviously you'll do it for free, so then you do gain a level, so it's great if that happens, but a lot of people, especially veterans of the game, just won't ask elves for help. And so, yeah, but if you could choose, being an elf early is pretty good. You'd want to focus on just getting a whole bunch of gear, a whole bunch of items that will help you so that you are the biggest, baddest Munchkin in the game and people need your help. That's kind of going to be your goal. And then, yeah, obviously, anytime anyone's fighting anyone, you say, yes, I will help you for free, and try to get a level or 2 along the way. Halfling is great late in the game. So they can sell items for double, one item for double each turn. So you're probably going to end up, most games of Munchkin, you're going to be selling items late in the game to try to get up to level 8 or 9. And so halflings are great to get a better deal on them. You can sometimes sell like a single 500 gold item to get a level. And that's a great deal late in the game. So halflings are good later. So that's about it for my Munchkin video. I will just say, in closing, if you are a hardcore gamer who has written off Munchkin as being all about luck, give it another try. And play with other hardcore gamers. Play with very strategic players. I think you will find that you will have to employ some really sneaky tactics and strategy in order to beat them. So use some of these tips that I have talked about in this video. Hopefully they'll help you. The other part is about somewhat vague rules. I've heard that as a common criticism of the game also. If you have had to come up with like house rules for some somewhat unclear situations, just know that Steve Jackson has clarified everything. Check out the tournament rules for Munchkin, and I think that should have some answers if you had some questions about the rules in the past. So yeah, that's it. Again, know that there is a more in-depth version of this analysis on my blog, theforbiddenlimb.com, so please check that out. And if you have a request for a game you'd like me to do, just put it down below in the comments, and I will do my best to get to it. But otherwise, thank you very much for watching, and hopefully I will see you again.